here today. So Tim Thays from Edge Home Finance Corporation, Holly St. Germain from Homeowners Financial Group, Carolyn Braun from First American Natural Hazards Disclosure, and Tamara Rossi Molina from First American Home Warranty. All four of you are friends of VCCAR and partners, and we appreciate so much your participation and support of this event today. So we can move right into our program at this time. We have Farah Wilder, and she, as I said earlier, is the California Association of Realtors Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. And in this newly created position, Farah supports CAR's diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. She collaborates with internal and external partners, key stakeholders, and CAR members on initiatives that dramatically heighten awareness and capabilities across the organization. And a really fun thing to know and a good thing to know about Farah is that she was a realtor with Compass and the founder of the Wilder Group, which was a real estate team based in Oakland, California. She served on boards of the Oakland and Oakland-Berkeley Association of Realtors from 2014 through 2017, and was the 2018 chair of CAR's Federal Housing Committee. She's a founding member of the Bridge Association of Realtors Housing Committee and has assisted home buyers, been part of home buyer programs. She's got a rich background in our industry, is I guess what I want to tell you with that. So with that, I'm just going to hand it over to you, Farah, and thank you for being here and ask you to take it away.
Thank you so much, Cher. I just really appreciate the opportunity to chat with this community. I feel like it's my community as well, just having been involved in both real estate as a realtor, but just on the board of CAR for a number of years and on NAR. I really feel like I'm speaking with my people. So thanks for having me. And it's really an honor to be chatting with you guys about a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. I don't know if it was mentioned, but before I was a realtor, I was a civil rights attorney. And so I started off my career, I moved to California to be a civil rights attorney. And so I kind of brought that sensibility with me to my work as a realtor, did a lot of first-time homebuyer seminars, had other realtors there, a few lenders on the panel, just because I really believed in the power of homeownership for everyone, and felt like this information was important to do. And many of my clients during my 13 years as a realtor were people of color, folks from the LGBTQ community, and I just felt that learning from their experiences in a housing market that was extremely competitive and becoming more and more expensive, felt like by the day, but definitely you could feel it by every couple of months. The prices would tick up at some point. Really was informative, and I brought those experiences to my work on the boards that I was on, and also to the work that I'm doing today. So I do understand the realtor life, and what I will say is that I understand too how difficult it is to move into a space where we're talking more openly about race and fair housing, because oftentimes those topics, even though for myself, we all have a race and we all want housing, we all think it's important, so it shouldn't be controversial, but oftentimes those topics are posed as political or controversial, and we're taught in real estate to keep it light, keep it non-political on our social media, and of course we're all in the realtor party, which is absolutely still the case, but we have a little bit of challenge because we don't have a lot of language within our realtor community around race and fair housing. So I see part of what I'm doing is to help us gain the tools to engage in these conversations and start to think about these things, and in particular because fair housing is critical for every single realtor to understand these laws and policies are important. The history is important. They are important for us to be in compliance with the way that we advise our clients and the way that we meet each new client. So these are very absolutely critical core topics for all of our business. And I see myself as, someone who's helping this community better discuss these issues. And what I also will say before I get started on the actual topic is that fair housing is about barriers to home ownership. And as realtors, especially realtors who are in the leadership space, we do a lot of work around barriers to home ownership. We have worked with seniors when we felt like our seniors weren't getting enough information or were getting targeted for PACE liens. We have worked with communities that are in high flood danger zones, around insurance, fire zones. So anytime that we see any community that's experiencing a barrier to home ownership, realtors don't hesitate to get together and advocate and on behalf of those communities. So that's really what we're talking about with fair housing. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. And I'll try to be succinct. I can talk for a long time, but I want to leave room for questions in the next presenter. So let's see. Okay, so I think you can see my screen. So I want to just get right into why it's so important for realtors to really take the lead on fair housing and to be discussing fair housing. And if you look at the most current art magazine from CAR, the CRE magazine, you will see an apology on behalf of the association. And basically that apology outlines realtors' unfortunate role in creating fair housing issues. So a lot of the racial disparities that we have, a lot of the difficulty that we have in building affordable housing is because of policies that realtors either put into place or promoted back in the 50s and 60s, and the practices that realtors were engaging in around steering. Realtor associations used to exclude people of color and women. And that was legal at the time, and it was something that realtors did, and it's part of the reason why, although we definitely do value all of the multicultural associations in our community, but a lot of these multicultural associations, in particular, the Realtors, are NAREB, KREB in California, as it's called, they started because their members actually weren't allowed to become realtors. Realtors are you. So one of the reasons why we engage in discussions around homeowners, around fair housing is similar to why we really get involved in discussions around housing supply and insurance, is because we are experts on homeownership. So if there is a challenge around homeownership, we are really a great resource for helping to give ideas on how to resolve those issues. And also, we are the folks, the first line of someone who wants to buy a house. So it's really important that we understand these issues so that we can best serve our communities and our clients. And so that leads me to the last one. Realtors are the first point of contact for homeowners. So let's talk about the history. So, and actually I moved my slides into a different order. So before we go into the history, we're going to talk about the legacy of that history. So this is part of the reason why we see home ownership gaps and some of the issues that we have today. So wealth and home ownership gaps. So let's think about our markets that are becoming more and more difficult. How many buyers get gifts from family, or they don't, maybe, whether they have student loans or not, could be a barrier to home ownership. So if someone has had the ability in their family for many generations, or even just one generation, to be able to build equity in the California housing market, those buyers are going to have a leg up in our expensive and difficult housing market. So folks who were discriminated against or barred, and people of color, again, were once legally barred in our state and many communities from becoming homeowners. And so those communities, those groups really do lag behind as far as being able. Yeah. Oh, sorry. For being able to help their kids buy homes. So the result is that in the communities that people of color were steered towards or were allowed to live in or that weren't restricted, those communities oftentimes were under-resourced. They were overcrowded. They were not the communities that were building equity because home ownership rates were maybe lesser in those areas. They had lower tax bases. So you often see not as many amenities. And then we have implicit bias and other forms of modern discrimination. So the reason why I mention that as a legacy is because you don't just flip a switch and all of a sudden in 1968, you get a law and it says you can't discriminate, and all of a sudden everyone's mind changes. And then of course there's the kind of when people look at a neighborhood and they see a community there and it doesn't have as many resources, sometimes folks, blame the community or kind of develop a perspective or viewpoint by looking at that, which may not be the actual reason why that community is that way. So there's implicit bias and, kind of stereotyping that we all create in our minds on the basis of how our brain works. But those are things that are also formed for other reasons. And now those things kind of shifted into a barrier that still continues to plague many communities in our state of California. So now we'll get into the history. So I think it's really important to touch on this history, and a great resource that, I have a list of resources at the end, but a great resource for some of this history is the book, The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. I think it's essential reading for all realtors, and it really covers quite a bit of these things. So essentially that book says that the federal government was hugely involved in creating the infrastructure of our modern lending practices, but in creating these programs that allowed for, during the Great Depression, folks to get into home ownership. So they allowed for, and we know kind of, some of us as realtors know the history of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and some of the predecessors that allowed for lending to happen for folks to be able to buy homes. And so at the time, the prevailing view, unfortunately, was that people of color, communities of color should not mix. So people of color and white communities should not mix, and that racial mixing would impact the value of a community. And of course, there was a higher value ascribed to primarily white communities. And so in order to designate what communities would get these loans that the federal government was starting to give out to folks for them to be able to buy a home, there was a housing shortage at the time, was that they created redlining maps. And so the redlining maps basically suggested whether a community was primarily white, was racially mixed, or had a significant amount of folks of color in them. And so based on those maps, the government would suggested who was going to be allowed to get these government-backed loans. So that's what redlining is. And unfortunately, that those redlining maps existed in so many major cities. And if you look at those cities, the segregation or the racial demographics still fall largely along the lines of those old redlining maps. So even though that practice is not legal anymore, you still see the legacy of those redlining maps. So racial steering. So at one point, it was a very common practice for real estate agents to steer clients. And steering is really a generic term for treating folks of different races differently when it comes to their home search. But you can kind of envision taking a client to different communities based on their ethnicity. And so this was something that was a practice that was promoted, unfortunately, by realtors, and to this day, still we see, as I mentioned, the segregation that is the legacy of this steering. And then restrictive covenants. You might not have as many restrictive covenants in communities that are either newer or weren't really built between the 40s and say 60s, 30s to 60s, or even before. Sometimes the the community was doing this on their own before the government got involved in promoting them. But restrictive covenants are kind of your neighborhood CC&Rs that that have rules, and during that period of time, especially if a developer was trying to get federal government money, either the federal government would mandate that a racially restrictive covenant go in the neighborhood rules or the deeds of the lots, and those restrictive covenants, and they're really unfortunate to come across if any of you have ever seen them in your course of business, but they're not legal, but they still exist in the property records for many California properties. But they essentially say that a piece of property cannot be purchased or lived in or rented by a particular group of people based on their demographics. Often it was racial, but we also see ones that are based on religion. So that it was something, these are things that were widespread and legal in the past, and they still have implications to this day. And I actually have a resource that I'll put in the chat that kind of talks about the history here and explains what a restrictive covenant and all of that is. So there were also layers of discrimination. So I mentioned sundown towns here. And in certain communities, if you look up, let's see, the history, and I have another resource on sundown towns here. I'm going to post this in the chat. So certain communities, and whether or not you had racially restrictive covenants or not, there are just entire cities that said, we do not want a particular group here after sundown. And unfortunately, this is also all throughout California. There was an article posted recently in the Community Deliberately Fair Housing that talked about Antioch's exclusion of Chinese people. So just all different kinds of policies and practices, often by police force, or it was a custom of the community, and folks would get together and, essentially either intimidate or escort people out of their community. And those communities stayed very segregated because of that. Realtor involvement. So a great book called Golden Gates by Connor Doherty covers the realtor involvement in California in creating some of these some of the segregation that we see now and the lack of affordable housing. So realtors got together in the 1960s when a state legislator got passed the Rumford Act, which would ban discrimination in many forms of housing and homeownership. And the realtors sponsored a constitutional amendment to overturn it. That was Article 14. And that is, again, part of our legacy. And like I said, in Article 34, was a constitutional amendment in the 1950s that realtors got together and promoted and got passed that would make it very difficult and it's still in place to this day, really difficult to build affordable housing. And so these are things that were impacting our communities and making it very difficult for people of color to get into homeownership. And then, of course, other kinds of discrimination, policing, education, job discrimination. And so you have a wealth gap because folks are being discriminated against in homeownership, but you also have other layers of discrimination that are causing, contributing to the wealth gaps as well. So then we move to modern fair housing issues. And so some of the things that we're looking at right now and that we want to let all communities know about in California, all realtors know about, are some of these modern fair housing issues. So implicit bias or unconscious bias, and this really came to the forefront in an expose by Newsday. And Newsday is a newspaper out of Long Island. And if someone is able to post in the chat that expose, what happened was it was a 3-year investigation of realtors. And in New York, you can videotape realtors. And it showed when they were on video that that realtors were treating different people of different ethnicities differently, unbeknownst to themselves usually. They didn't realize it, but they didn't have consistent systems. And they found that steering was very prevalent. And so we don't have the ability to do video recording here in California of parties that aren't consenting to it. So we don't get that kind of video information of our realtors. But because there are other instances showing the prevalence of implicit bias, for example, appraisal bias, some of the stories coming out of Northern California, there's a lot of data that suggests that implicit bias is prevalent in our industry. And the reason why this is really, really important is because if we don't realize or we're not learning about bias and we are unconsciously treating folks differently, then we could be potentially violating a fair housing law and not realizing it. So it's really important to make sure that our realtor communities know we could be being tested even without the videotape. The testing can happen without video, and there are fair housing nonprofits that do this. But it's really important to kind of learn about it and to institute some practices to make sure that we're being consistent. So gentrification, that's another topic that's coming up. So in communities, particularly communities of color that have tended to be less expensive, or where the folks have had less access to generational wealth, we're seeing that because California is so expensive, there's a lot of demand for all properties, particularly in the less expensive areas. And supply and demand means that a greater demand in those areas is increasing the price. So that is impacting communities of color. Predatory lending. So predatory lending is when folks are targeted for higher interest rate, really expensive loans. And this is something that we have found communities of color are particularly vulnerable to, whether by word of mouth, folks are getting loans within a community that end up not being so great for that community, or sometimes the studies show that people of color tend to get more expensive loans, that there's quite a bit of bias and discrimination there. So that's a topic. Schools. So realtors often give advice on schools and school districts and where to live. And so this is, we pride ourselves on having answers. Our clients ask us the question. The issue around schools is that when we are telling folks, this is the school you really want to be in, or this is the great school, this is the not so good school, it could be considered steering. It's also potentially perpetuating some of these some of the kind of preference for certain areas, and maybe an idea or stereotype about another area or a community. And so what I would suggest is a really good system to have around that question for schools is to really ask clients to tell you what schools they want to be in. And so really start to think about schools. Another thing that's related to schools that's not on this list is the language that realtors use. And a lot of us are familiar with this when it comes to the master bedroom language. So that's really come up a lot as far as that potentially could offend some folks, or because of a reference potentially to slavery. But I would suggest that there's other language that I want to put on folks' radar that realtors say, and I was a realtor, I was in several real estate offices, and I know realtors they say this is a better neighborhood, this is a great neighborhood, that one's sketchy, this one's changing, that one's coming up. So just think about the language that we use and how it could offer an improper suggestion to a client as to what's good or what's not so good about a community. It could lead to steering or offering our own bias or layering our own opinion about communities onto our clients. And it's also not necessarily keeping in mind with the history of potentially why certain communities are less resourced than others. So it's not sensitive to those communities. And I think it's really important to kind of think about how we describe communities, particularly to each other and our clients. Disparate impact. So disparate impact, particularly for the folks who are involved in local government advocacy, is a concept I just want to put on everyone's radar, or local government, state government, and federal government. There are policies, particularly think of point of sale ordinances, when when a transfer tax increases, things that make it a little more difficult or expensive, or maybe a lot more difficult or expensive to buy homes, that people with more generational wealth, help from parents, have had more ability in their life to make higher incomes because they have had less discrimination against themselves. The folks who have that disadvantage, just societally, are disparately impacted by some of those policies and laws. So as we advocate for greater fair housing policy, greater fair housing laws, and support, think about disparate impact. And then lack of education around fair housing issues. And so, of course, we talked about implicit bias and things of that nature. I can also say buyer letters. So when our realtor community is unaware, potentially they are either perpetuating some of these fair housing issues, or could inadvertently find themselves, kind of subject to some sort of testing, investigation, or complaint, because they're just not really realizing some of the practices that they do. And of course, as a realtor, I'm aware, because there's just some customs that we learn that we do that potentially have, as we are becoming aware of fair housing implications. Okay, so key diversity and fair housing. So I don't know, I think I put this in here. I don't know why I have two. Okay, so what you can do. So some of the things that you can do, and I've touched on some of them already, but I just want to kind of inspire you around taking action, because aside from kind of modifying your business to make sure that you're treating everyone consistently, there are some other things that everyone can really do around fair housing. So local government advocacy. So those fees that have disparate impact, or that, and this is good for all of us, right? So additional fees are something none of us wants. We do not want high transfer taxes, point of sale ordinances, or anything that would pose any barriers that are arbitrary on home ownership, but they also really do potentially keep folks out of home ownership. Think about down payment assistance programs that are local, things that could be funded better. When the local government is doing their zoning, think about ways that you can work to increase supply, particularly affordable supply, because those are the and supply that leads to home ownership. Those are the things that really start to close home ownership gaps and help communities that have been underserved build generational wealth. Work with and join multicultural organizations. So we're talking about ARIA, NAREP, NAREB. So that would be a good one. And I know I'm a little short on time, so I'll go through these really quickly. Invite community organizations to speak at the association, read about fair housing history of communities of color, donate to Housing Affordability Fund. That is a CAR program that funds local down payment assistance programs, and learn about first-time homebuyer programs. So if you get a client and you're not sure how they can buy, send them to a housing counselor or a lender that knows down payment assistance programs, because the good thing to do is to keep that person in the loop, especially as our markets are increasing in value, so that hopefully they don't get priced out, and there may be someone or they don't get discouraged too. Okay, so I have some resources here. If you want to take a picture, I don't need to go over each one, but these are some of my favorite resources. And I can put some of them in the chat later once I'm done talking. And I do include the Newsday investigation. And then I'm going to leave you with this quote: no one can do everything, but everyone can do something, and together we can change the world. I just love it. I believe it. And farahw@car.org, that is my email address if you want to reach out to me. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm here for questions if I haven't gone too over time.
Thank you, Farah. That was awesome. I think that's information that all of us appreciate. And, people don't always know our history, and it's good to know what part we've played in some of the things you're talking about as realtors and how we can do better. I mean, we always want to do better. We want to be better. So very good information. Did anybody have any questions? Did anyone put anything in the chat? Don't see, I've kind of been looking in the chat. I don't see anybody with a raised hand. I think you covered it. I took a picture of the resources too. Maybe we'll share that with people later.
And I also posted links in the chat with the resources. So,
okay, you're awesome.
Yes. And someone asked, can we join an organization today? Absolutely. So, well, first of all, you guys are all members of CAR, and I'm going to put in the chat some fair housing events that are coming up. But I would, also invite you to look into your local chapters of AREAA, and it's AREAA. So that's the Asian Real Estate Trade Group. Your local KREB, that's the California Association of Real Estate Brokers. That's the traditionally African American Real Estate Trades Group. They're open to everyone. NORA, NHORA, that's a Latinx trade group, and NAREP, that's the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. So those are all, multicultural trade groups that you can join. We work very closely with all of them, and also invite them to, your events, and attend their events, do events together. And I would say, especially the Realtors, they usually have really strong, extensive fair housing agendas. Particularly, AREAA is having a fair housing related a summit at the end of this month. And one more I'm forgetting, the LGBTQ plus Alliance for Real Estate. So they are a new group, and they have chapters all over the state of California as well. So I will put their links in the chat.
Great, thank you. We did have Karen chimed in, and she had something really good to say. She said, getting development approvals today takes years and costs a fortune. Welcome to CAR's biggest issue, Karen. There is no requirement that city and county planners accomplish the completion of permits. They're unlicensed. Perhaps the realtors should insist that planners be licensed. Maybe they'd be more efficient. Just a thought. Karen, you need to join LGR and find out more about the work we do in advocacy, I think. We're going to welcome you to that group and reach out to you to participate because you have good thoughts. Let's see, who else? Anybody? It looks like that's it. I guess we can move on. So thank you again. We really appreciate you being here. And next up, we have the CEO of CRMLS, Art Carter. He's going to be sharing with us some things, and he will also, I think we also have some question and answer time with Art. So I'm going to just pass it off to you and let you take it away, Art. Everybody's chomping at the bit to hear what you have to say.
Oh, Art, you're muted.
What would a Zoom meeting be without somebody's trying to speak without being muted? So my apologies. Hopefully, good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully everybody is having a good day. I'm looking forward to the day that we can actually do these in person again. You guys, Ventura joined CRMLS shortly before the pandemic started, and I haven't gotten an opportunity to come out in person and speak for you guys. So I'm looking forward to that and getting to meet you guys face to face finally as we move along. To one of Farah's points, she had talked about the down payment resources that you can have access to. We are in the process of rolling out down payment resources to all of our member organizations, and there'll be a full press release and information for you guys in the next week or two. And it'll actually be at the listing level and you'll be able to click on a button and find all of the down payment resources that are available, listing by listing and area by area. So we're looking forward to getting that out to you guys as well. So thank you once again. Some heavy topics today, and I'm not going to change that tenor whatsoever. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Department of Justice. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the transitions that we're making with showing services. And then, one of the things that is near and dear to my heart, and hopefully there's some excitement out there about it as well, which is our Glide product offering. And we're going to, for those of you guys who haven't utilized it, we're going to kind of dive into what that looks like in the multiple listing service and what we have to offer there. So Devin is basically going to be doing most of the driving for me. So if we could have the first slide. We're, like I said, going to talk about the Department of Justice versus NAR and the new consumer protection rules. Before I get into and Devin, if just go ahead and flip to the next slide. Before we really get into things, I just kind of want to give you guys a background and an idea of where this came from, how long it's been going on, and just really what we'll dive into the rule sets and what it potentially could mean for you guys. Everything I'm about to say about what's going to be happening in the next 3 to 6 months is not tied or not written in stone as of yet. So recognize that there's a lot of things that need to happen with the Department of Justice and NAR before any of this stuff can move forward. But let's go back to 2017, and the Department of Justice held a joint meeting with the Federal Trade Commission in Washington, D.C. I was very fortunate or unfortunate to be involved in that process and actually testified in front of their joint panel. And they brought in brokers and MLS execs and organized real estate individuals, just a wide and outside vendors, outside third-party organizations. And basically what they wanted to discuss was competition in real estate. And just any area that they felt that either organized real estate, MLSs, and brokerages were impeding fair competition across the board when it came to the consumer's access to information. And so basically past 2017, I know that an announcement was made in November that the National Association of Realtors and the Department of Justice had entered into a consent decree. And in lieu of the Department of Justice going through an extensive lawsuit with the National Association of Realtors, the National Association of Realtors agreed to enter into negotiations with the Department of Justice in a number of key areas. And basically, these new rules, once they're implemented, will change the way that business is done within your platforms. And I'll get into it, but CRMLS has already changed some of those mechanisms where we know that those pieces of information are a little bit more reliable based off of our background with going through this with the Department of Justice and the FTC. So we do plan on fully complying with the terms of the government mandated agreement once it's finalized. So let's dive into what we're looking at when it comes to what these rule sets are and what the potential changes that are going to be coming down the road for you guys. So next slide. Basically, and as I said, none of these are set in stone, but we are pretty sure as to what the parameters that the National Association and the Department of Justice are going to be talking about. There are 4 items. The first one is there can be no reference to free brokerage services by real estate professionals in the state, or not just in the state of California, but across the country. And a lot of questions are yet to be answered as to what does that mean? Can you relay to your consumer that, as on the buy side, that there's no cost for your services? That cannot be a published or pronounced opportunity for buyers not to pay anything for services. So does it mean that you can't offer free CMA services? Does it mean you can't offer free valuations, free whatever? We're not really sure exactly what the extent of these rules are going to come down and say, but there's a potential that the Department of Justice is going to pretty much ban the use of free from your vocabulary as we move forward. But as I said, we will be hearing a little bit more about what's going on with that. Offer of compensation. So this is one of the ones that I know has been a little bit confusing to people. CRMLS has gone ahead and made some changes on the rule set on that side. So basically the seller's offer of compensation, meaning that SOC field within the multiple listing service where you as the seller's agent input the amount that you're willing to pay a buyer's agent for bringing a ready, willing, and able buyer to you, and that you complete a deal. That amount now must be published on IDX websites and on client-facing reports. We're not really sure exactly how deep within the multiple listing service that this is going to be, but it's very clear that our brokerage community must be given the opportunity. We can't require that they do it, but they must be given the opportunity to receive that feed of selling office compensation and be able to display it to the consumer. CRMLS was stuck into a very hard, between a rock and a hard place, in all honesty, where a number of national franchises and national companies had decided in January to move forward and start publishing selling office compensation, whether or not they had the rule changes within the multiple listing services that would allow them to do that. And given the fact that we were not going to, given that the Department of Justice had already made it very clear that selling office compensation should be displayed to the consuming public, we decided in January to change the rule set. And as of February 15th, members of CRMLS, if they choose, on their public-facing sites may display selling office compensation. So as I said, that the Department of Justice and NAR haven't finalized the rule set, but it's very clear that that is a rule that's really not going to be that difficult for the Department of Justice and NAR to get their arms around. Okay. One of the other elements that CRMLS has already implemented is that you're not allowed to search by compensation or brokerage within the multiple listing service. So there is no capabilities, and we did this in February, to allow for brokers and agents to filter their searches based off of compensation or the brokerage that is offering the listing out in a cooperative fashion. So we did make those changes within your Flex platform, and that filtering by compensation or by brokerage is no longer something that you guys are able to do. And as such, we know that we're going to be complying with something that is pretty straightforward from the Department of Justice's standpoint. I know that I got asked a question in a presentation that I made about a month ago that the agent asked, well, how do I solve the problem? And I kind of pushed back on them. I said, what problem is that? And they said, I don't want to see any listings that have lower amounts of compensation on them. That's exactly, you and the Department of Justice define the problem completely differently. The Department of Justice defines the problem as you being able to filter out and not give to your clients those properties that may not be compensated as well as other properties in the multiple listing service. That is the problem is defined by the Department of Justice. So just know that that is something that is pretty straightforward, and CRMLS has already complied on that side. The real sticky one for us is item number 4, which is lockbox access. And basically what the Department of Justice is pushing the National Association of Realtors to build rule sets around is that any licensee, and we're going to use California in this instance, any licensee in the state of California will be allowed to access lockboxes across the state without having to become a member of that multiple listing service. Okay, so these are non-participant or non-subscriber, non-members of the MLS. They have to be licensed, but they're going to have the capabilities of accessing lockboxes. And so you guys are in, an area that is, a little bit different as to where one-time use codes are going to be able to be given out in these situations. But really what the sticking points around this are is that NAR has an expectation that there's not a free rider problem in regards to people who don't pay for access to the multiple listings service, therefore are not required to pay for access into the lockbox system. And so those realtors who are part of the MLS and part of the lockbox system are the ones that have to pay the freight for this lockbox system being used. So NAR is working back and forth with the Department of Justice on this. And at this point, what it really comes down to is whether or not the non-participants, non-subscribers of the multiple listing service will have to have access to the MLS, have to have access to the lockbox in some form or fashion. But what NAR is pushing back on is they want to have some sort of ability that these non-participants will have to follow some set of rules, some set of regulations, and may have to pay for some of that access themselves. So just know that that's one of the sticking points. So one of the things that's important to know, because I always get this question on this side, is that your seller will always be able to determine whether or not somebody gains access to their property. And when they put a lockbox on the property, one of the things that NAR is pushing for is that the seller has the right to dictate that non-participant, non-subscriber access will not be allowed into their house. So that may be a change to one of the form sets. That may be something that we're going to have a lot more information coming down the line on. The Department of Justice is reviewing the NAR's proposed rules. Remember when the consent decree was entered into in the November timeframe, there was a different administration in place. And the those elected officials have to appoint people within the Department of Justice that will be running the rest of the negotiations for this process. And those things take time. And we're waiting for the Department of Justice to get back to NAR on the proposed rule changes that they've put out to the Department of Justice. That being said, we don't know if it's going to be next month. We don't know if it's going to be 6 months. We don't know when that information is going to finally get out to us at the MLS level. But we know that once the Department of Justice and NAR have agreed to the rule set, we're going to have 60 days to implement. You're probably asking yourself, why are you telling us about all of these things that haven't been decided as of yet? We're out trying to talk about it as much as we possibly can to get your arms around this and know that there's going to be a very, very short time frame in between the time the Department of Justice and NAR come to an agreement and we actually roll the rules out. 60 days is not that much time to get some of the changes into your hands and some understanding as to what's going on along those lines. So let's go on to the next slide and the next issue. One of the things that I know, I'm sorry, there's a couple more slides on this. We do have a website that you guys can go to, and we're going to keep this updated as things go along. It's crmls.org/new rules. And next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about what's coming down with Zillow and showing time. One of the things that, Zillow is a brokerage within the CRMLS system now. Hopefully everybody understands that. And we have a clear understanding that Zillow has all the rights to data as a brokerage as everybody else that has been in the business a little bit longer than them. They made that transition in the January timeframe within the CRMLS system, and nationwide have made that transition across the board. So subsequent to that in February, Zillow acquired showing time. And we've heard from a lot of brokers and agents that they're concerned with all of the depth of information that is available within a showing platform, and that it might put beneficial information into a competitor's hands, which Zillow is to our brokerage community out there. So the board of directors of CRMLS did meet and has allowed us to explore some short-term and long-term options when it comes to showing services and things that are attached to the multiple listing service. It is a top priority of ours. Short-term, we are going to be looking at the statistics that we're getting out of showing time, seeing if people are actually no longer using it. It was such a positive ad within the CRMLS system. Well over 50% of the listings within our system had a showing time showing attached to them. So we're going to be looking at that very closely and making sure that short term that we have some options for you to make sure that you as a broker and an agent have the ability to set a showing within the multiple listing service. And as I said, a top priority. Long term, what we're going to be doing is one of the things that we see in the vendor community and within the franchise community is that showing services are most likely going to be splintered after this, meaning that there's going to be multiple different showing platforms and multiple different ways of scheduling a showing. So what CRMLS is doing with a number of large MLSs across the country is we're building a back-end platform in which it doesn't matter which showing service you use, we're technologically going to be combining that information within the CRMLS platform to where you could use ABC showing and still to set the showing and still have within another platform that your franchise offers or somebody along those lines, and still be able to see all that information no matter what front end you put that information into. And to be able within the CRMLS platform to be able to do what you guys are doing now, which is to set a showing, multiple showings, and be able to communicate with your clients where those showings are and mapping them out and things along those lines. So longer term, that's our solution. When I say short term, you're going to be getting an announcement out of us in the next couple of weeks about that short-term solution. And longer term, we're actually going to be delivering against this hub concept to where you guys, it doesn't really matter which showing service you use to set the showing, that you'll be able to see it across the board. So let's go ahead to the next slide. One of my favorite things, which is Glide. I will tell you that in 2015 or 2005, I'm sorry, not dating myself as much as I should. 2005, I took over at CRMLS. And one of the first things I did was, and I'm dating myself when I say this, for those of you who are in the crowd that remember it, I went to the leadership team at CAR and the group of people that was putting win forms out. And my idea was, wouldn't it be great if win forms integrated directly into the MLS? And when you put up a transaction envelope within win forms, it would communicate all that information over to the MLS at the same time it was populating all of your forms internally. I finally found in 2020 a willing partner in Glide to make this a reality. So one of the things that we guys know that, get into the next slide, Devin, we have put out a make an offer button, submit an offer within the multiple listing service. And basically what this does is allows you directly from the multiple listing service to click on a button or within Glide and put in an ML number. And basically it will launch you into the residential purchase agreement. And it will fill out a lot of the fields that you need to fill out within that platform. And once you fill all the fields in that you need to fill in, such as the offer details, you'll be able to submit that directly to the listing agent. And it is done via email, and it is done in a secure way, into which once the listing agent has interacted with your listing offer, you're going to get notification that it has been seen. You're going to be able to communicate directly off of any counter offers that are put in. And the cool thing about it from a listing agent standpoint is that you're going to be able to aggregate all of these offers in one platform, be able to compare them, counter, accept, reject offers. You're going to be able to invite your clients in to be able to look at this simple platform so they have the ability to compare all of the offers coming in. And you're going to be able to click on a button, say, I want to counter this one, this one, and this one. And it will launch you into Glide, into the counter offer, and be able to fill that out and automatically email it out. It is integrated with DocuSign and gives you the ability across the board to have your clients interact with DocuSign, you interact with DocuSign, just makes the process as easy as we possibly can. So next slide. Kind of talked about this, it kind of eases the excessive paperwork, multiple places to follow up. One of the difficulties you guys face in this industry is there's so much fraud going on, especially with hijacking of emails and things along those lines. Putting it back into a secure system with your clients' confidential information is something you guys absolutely need to do. And all of the confidential information being sent via email actually requires you to log into a secure system and use a username and password before you go in. With that, I'm going to have Devin actually drop into Glide really quickly. I know we're very short on time. You guys can see it here. You're seeing the purple button, submit offer using Glide, and Devin's going to show you how that works.
All right, can you guys see my screen okay? Yep, okay, good. All right, so basically when you guys are in here, okay, we're just gonna do a quick search, right? You're gonna find your property that you are looking for.
And we apologize if we were showing anybody's listing in here. It's just for showing purposes of showing you guys how it actually works.
Right, so we're gonna find our property here. And across the top here, we're gonna go to more. And it's gonna be submit an offer using Glide. So when you click it, it's going to redirect you. Do any of you guys sit when it's scrolling and you're like, work, work, work? That's where I'm at, work, 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 go. Okay, so it's gonna take you here, right? Let's submit your offer. It's gonna give us the property address, who it's currently being represented by. You're gonna get started and it's going to walk you through some basic detailed steps. Who's the primary buyer agent? That is me. You're gonna go to continue. Like I said, I'm gonna go snappy. I know we're out of time, right? So if you've already prepared an offer, it's going to prompt you to upload here. Otherwise, we're gonna create an offer with Glide here. It's gonna ask you a couple more preliminary questions, but then it's gonna take you to your offer package. So here's your overview. You can scroll down here, right? Now you can start to create and submit an offer here. All of some additional forms. You can start your transaction timeline, but your offer package would be here, your PED requests. It's going to show you, you can have your additional details and the party information here, right? Your documents, it will ask you what type of document system you are leveraging, whether that's DocuSign or the Glide system. And it would say you have everything right here at a glance. All right, so I don't know how many of you guys have had a chance to pop in there. Hopefully for some, this was new information and you're excited to go in there and check it out. When you go in to submit one the first time, it's going to ask you if you want to take a webinar. And we have many webinars in regards to this. It's a pretty user-friendly system, but it will take you through those ins and outs so that you can get in, do what you need to do and get out. But I've been most impressed with the way that it categorizes it. I don't know, has helped my brain to keep everything in order. So hopefully you guys find it just as exciting as we do at CRMLS.
Okay, a couple important things to note as Devin dives back into the presentation. We have seen quite a bit of usage of the product as we go across. There is a free broker version that gives the brokerage a little bit more of a tool set that allows them to interact with all of the offers being submitted on behalf of the brokerage, and we're looking at getting some more information across the board as well. Next slide, Devin. I think it's important to note that, hey, what if people are still sending me, PDFs of documentation? You have the ability to upload those documents into Glide. It's very easy. Using OCR, it will read all of those documents and submit an offer package into your platform to allow you to communicate with your clients as well. As you see, it's being utilized pretty significantly across the CRMLS system. That 9,000 offers is about 33% of the listings within the CRMLS system that have gone from pending from active into pending over the last month. You guys were the first to go active with it on the 16th of March. We're seeing quite a few of those offers come through. So we're excited about it, and we're looking forward to getting some more information. So I talked a little bit earlier about that full integration. Sometime during the summer or early September, there actually will be the ability for you guys to go into Glide, fill out the whole entire listing detail information sheet from CRMLS and have it populate both your listing agreement and have it populate the multiple listing service. You won't have to go in and do entry into the MLS anymore. You'll be doing entry on one side, and all of that will accommodate being inserted into the multiple listing service and starting your process with all of your forms and everything. With that, I know that I'm a little bit over time, and do I have enough time for questions, Cher?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is the time. I don't see that anyone, let's see, were there questions? I didn't see any here in the chat. I think, answered them as we were going along. I did have someone ask if the presentation, the slides were going to be available. I don't know if that's something and they asked that during the Department of Justice section.
Yeah, absolutely. Devin will send this final slide deck over to you, Wendy.
Okay, great. So we can provide that if there are people looking for that. Yeah, great information about that Glide program too. It's really a good tool. I think we're all going to fall in love with it once we get used to it. And it is super user friendly. I can tell you I've used it and it's super user friendly and intuitive. Or at least it works the way mine and Devin's brains work.
So one of the questions that had come up is regards to the brokerage community company. You are not going to be able to filter by brokerage company, but of course, you're going to be able to determine what brokerage every listing is attached to. So I just want to make sure that there's a clear delineation in between those two items. You can't filter by it, but you will absolutely be able to know what brokerage each listing is attached to. The other question that gets asked quite a bit is, will this affect my ability within my own brokerage to do some of these filtering items? And the answer is no, but we're working on some clear ways for the brokerage community to get the information that they need out of all of the different platforms that we have.
Okay, Corinne Barlow asks, currently when you receive a Glide form emailed from another agent, it comes in a zip form and it takes 6 clicks to download the Glide form. Why does it have to be this way?
That is a good question. We will take, Corinne, we will take your question and get you an answer back on that one.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else? You've got Art here. This was really, really great. We appreciate so much your partnership with us, and our MLS has been a really smooth and wonderful operation, and especially through this difficult time and process, all of the legalities involved now with staying compliant and keeping our organization on the right track. We have a good partner here in CRMLS to do that, and we appreciate your part with us.
Thank you very much. And you know, we know that there's a difficult time frame. Last September when we went, August, September when we went through the conversion, as I would tell Wendy on a regular basis, conversions suck, but they do get better. And I think we are past those issues, and we're looking to build some positive things out there for Ventura Coastal.
Great. Well, with nothing else, I see someone just said, well, they're asking about some fees. We'll go ahead and answer that separately. And asking about DocuSign subscriptions, we'll answer that one privately too. I guess that's all. I think that's all the questions we had for you, Art. Thank you so much again. We appreciate you being here. and we can move on, I guess, with our association updates and announcements. We have just a few more things to share with you guys. So we have board elections coming up, and there's nothing more exciting in the life of your president than looking forward to the day when there has been. And my day is soon coming. It seems like this year is flying by, and we are accepting applications for the board of directors election. And anyone who meets the criteria could submit an application to run for one of the open positions on the board of directors. And there are 7 open positions. So we're going to have some movement this year. We're going to have new board members, and that's exciting. It's really exciting to have that. So it's getting close. Monday, May 3rd at 5 p.m. is the application deadline. We're going to be reaching out to some of you, but just because we didn't reach out to you doesn't mean you shouldn't run for a position on the board. We really, really would love to have you come out, and if you're qualified, which many of you out there probably are, run for a position. And we have our spring business meetings coming up for the California Association of Realtors, starting April 19th through May 6th. And this is a virtual meeting this year. You'll see a list of who your directors are here locally. But these meetings are something that a lot of them you could attend as a general member, just to see what goes on at CAR and how things are going. And I think it would really behoove you to find out more. So why don't you reach out to us, and we'll share with you how you can get involved and maybe come to a couple of these meetings and see how things run at our state association. One of the big days that we have is this one, and this is called Ledge Day, CAR Legislative Day. It's Tuesday, April 27th. And this is an opportunity for realtors from across California to participate in meetings with your state legislators and discuss the issues that affect the real estate industry the most. And this is open to all. And you'll see, take a picture of this slide if you're interested, or reach out to us at the association, because you do have to register in advance. You have to go on the platform, which is called Whova. It's a very cool platform. It's a great way to network with people and meet people. But you have to register on that platform to attend Legislative Day. But you might really enjoy participating and seeing. You'll be a participant in the background because most of the participation is assigned in advance. But you'll get to see what's really happening and what we do when we meet with your legislators and what we talk about. And then we also want to always encourage you to remember our Realtor Action Fund. And we want to thank our Realtor Action Fund contributors. So our Sterling R's you can see here are Wendy Austin, Cindy Diaz-Telly, Rebecca Elliott, Juliet Esquivias, Marta Golding Brown, Cher Hurd, Erica Holmes, and Jim Keith. And that means they volunteered to invest between $1,000 and $2,499. Our Silver Bears for California, which is a $449 voluntary investment, are Ashley Anderson, Matt Caprito, Tim Comstock, Jorge De Leon, Janet Dorsey, Cami Pinsack, Adela Trainer, Carolyn Trebold, and Kay Wilson Bolton. And then we have some true cost of doing business. We've told you in the past that it costs for each of our members $148 plus to do what we do and to advocate on our behalf and on our clients' behalf. And those who have contributed at that level are Ellen Dembowski, Don Durazo, Bonnie Getz, Dennis Goldstein, Ariel Palmer, Ken Wallace, and BJ Ward. And we thank you all for participating, and this is open for all of you. So we ask you to please participate in this. Go to www.vcrealtors.com and click on the community info to find out how to do that. And with that, I'll pass it off to you, Ashley, soon to be president. Uh-oh, Ashley's mic is not working. Oh no. So I'll go ahead for Ashley and go ahead and read what he was going to talk about. He was going to be talking about things that we have upcoming, exciting events. We have a boomer meeting, broker owner manager meeting planned for Thursday, May 20th in the afternoon. We have a wellness walk. We're super excited about this with things starting to open up a little bit and people getting their vaccines. We thought it would be fun to get together and do a hike. So you'll get more information about that on Friday, May 21st at 8 a.m. We have a very, very exciting event. The Future is Bright, an economic update with Joel Singer. This is a collaboration we're working on with our local ARIA. We were talking about collaborations earlier. So our local ARIA, Asian real estate professionals, and our Women's Council professionals and our VCCAR professionals. And that will be Thursday, August 5th at noon, and it's a live in-person event, and you'll be getting information about that soon too. But to get Joel Singer, the CAR CEO, to come present about the economy is going to be really exciting, because I think everybody's going to want to hear what he has to say. And then last but not least, we have on our agenda Realtor Feud again coming up Friday, November 12th, and that'll be an evening event. And then of course you can always go to our vcrealtors.com and click on classes and events to find out about other things that we have going on all the time. We've always got something going on. Next up, we have our first Vice President, Juliet Esquivias. Take it away, Juliet.
I forgot to unmute. Hi, everybody. So nice to see so many participants today. This is just a friendly reminder about the NAR Code of Ethics requirement. All members of the National Association of Realtors are required to complete at least 2.5 hours of an approved Code of Ethics training within a 3-year cycle. And the current cycle began January 1 of 2019 and ends at the end of this year. So you want to make sure that you are in compliance. If you don't know if you're in compliance, you can, there's the website there. You can go to www.vcrealtors.com /code, and it'll take you to one of our pages on our website, and it'll say, are you in compliance? And you can actually, there's a little link there. It says check Code of Ethics status at NAR, and you can click that and see if you're in compliance. If you're not, the easiest way to do it is NAR offers a free Code of Ethics class, so you can do it that way. Or if you wanted to take a class from another authorized company, you can do that and then just send your certificate to the board. You can either do it via, you can upload it, you can fax it, or email it. So yeah, don't forget to be in compliance and take that Code of Ethics class. I think on the next slide here, we have some true or false statements. The first one is the California Department of Real Estate requires this course, and that is actually false. This is not a licensing requirement. This is actually a requirement that's mandated by NAR. The next statement, I'm a Realtor Emeritus. I do not have to complete the course. That is very true. If you have been in the business over 40 years and you're a Realtor Emeritus, you do not have to take the Code of Ethics course. The next one, NAR course requirement must be completed every 5 years. Actually, no, it's 3 years now. It used to be 4 years, then it was 2 years, and now it's on a 3-year cycle. The last one, I have the Cal DRE 7030 continuing education exemption. So I do not have to take the NAR Code of Ethics training requirement. And that actually, again, is false. Yes, we all have to take that Code of Ethics training. So just a friendly reminder, get it in. It's due by the end of this year. And then the new cycle starts January 1 of 2022. So thanks.
Oopsie, no microphone there. Thanks so much. Cami, do you want to take it away? Our treasurer, Cami Pinsek, has some announcements as well.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? I think Wendy turned off my mute.
We hear you.
I get to talk. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yay. Okay. I get to talk about shopping. My favorite thing. How many of you were wanting to get a sign writer or booties for a client's home showing that had brand new carpets, and you didn't know where to go? Well, you can go to vcrealtors.com and there will be a link that will take you to our Realtor store. So many wonderful things there. You can get Realtor logo items. You could even get gifts for your clients, jewelry, open house necessities, really cute like seasonal sign writers. It's all sorts of stuff. And if you didn't know about it, go ahead, you can go and click on the link and it takes you to the third party page that where you already have most likely your credit card stored, and you can easily order these items. And there is contactless, curbless pickup, and it will be all ready for you. So take advantage of the inventory that we have and the items that are available. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you. And next we have past President Tim Comstock, and he is going to talk about the Leadership Academy. Go ahead, Tim.
Hello, everybody. So, our Leadership Academy, unfortunately, last year because of COVID, we couldn't do it, but we're back on. We're going to have the class starting later this year. Applications are available starting June 1st. The interview process will start on August 6th. The program includes 7 realtors and members and 1 affiliate, and the combination is going to be in person and virtual. There's going to be 9 sessions beginning on August 25th and ending with the graduation celebration on October 20th. We did have Ziggy show up for last time, and it was awesome to have him speak. We always have great speakers. It's a very good opportunity. And so the sessions include the kickoff team building, community project, travel to CAR business meetings or Reimagine, so that's in Long Beach. And there's more. So please become a leader. Don't be a follower. We need to build more leaders. A lot of our members on our board, or some of our members on our board and our directors and chairing committees now, went through this leadership program. These are people that are hitters in our marketplace. I know one right now that's he's a top producer. He's kicking butt, taking names, and this is an opportunity for you to build your skill set. And you don't have to be a newbie agent. You can be an established agent just wanting to improve your skills. So I encourage all of you to get involved in this. And that's all I have to say today.
Thank you, Tim. All right, Wendy. Wendy has some things about the office to tell us, which is exciting.
Yes, thank you. Great seeing everyone today. I have been waiting, I can't even tell you how long to make this announcement. While you were all deemed essential, we were not. So that's why we've been open, but helping you via appointment. So with the latest announcement from our governor that we're hoping to be out of all of the tiers by June 15th, we will wait for whatever protocol as an office that we have to follow. But we are hoping with that we will open no later than July 1st, but also very optimistic that it could be a little sooner than that. So we've got some fun things. Your leadership is working on some fun things so we can at least open the office and start to see you. And I know that the requests for meetings are going to be a combination of virtual and in person. And we have been making some updates physically to the office. So we're excited to have you back so you can see that and hopefully have something a little fun, a little festivities in the parking lot to do kind of a grand reopening and still safely distance to whatever protocol that means, and then see each other. So we're looking forward to it. So thank you for being patient with the staff working remotely over the last year and a handful of months. So we are open right now by appointment only. So we are continued to servicing that way, but looking forward to a full open very soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much. We do have, we had a question from about an earlier slide. Ilse Oliver asked, does the Code of Ethics part of the license renewal count for renewal update?
So it does. However, our system, because this is an NAR requirement, our system in theory is synced with NAR, but we are not synced with the DRE. So if you did take a Code of Ethics course for your license renewal, we'll need a copy of that certificate. So if you go to that page that Juliet referenced, vcrealtors.com/code, there's a little tool there where you can upload it or you can email it to us. I mean, you could mail it or you can fax it too. So just get us a certificate.
Thank you.
I forgot that I had one other thing, but you could do it too, Cher.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
So we, when we went into lockdown last year, we really pushed this new initiative from NAR, which was the C2X. And I had comments from other AORs, neighboring AORs, that they were shocked at how many of our members completed it. We have over 60 of our members on this list, but we definitely want to keep that going. So NAR has just on April 1st announced a new challenge to state and local associations. So what they're doing is a point system. So as a local association between now and October, we want to get as many additional members through the C2X endorsement program as we can. What does that mean for us as an association? If we're one of the winners, we get a $5,000 grant. So that is substantial. So we would love to be that little association off the coast that covers our little areas to be recognized on the national stage with that. So we're asking you to help us. So I'll go back. I think I can go back. Contact one of these members and ask them about C2X. Just take the dive. C2X website, you can Google it and start the process. I took it quite some time ago. I can't remember. Cher, how long does it take? Do you remember? It takes about around 20 to 40 hours, maybe, or less. Not 40, maybe 20.
Yeah, it wouldn't be 40 hours. And it's going to vary because it's geared toward the individual. So you'll have, you'll be given your tests or your information, your learning. You'll be given your learning based on how you answer some questions and how you proceed through the process. So for some, it'll be a little shorter, and for some, it'll be a little longer, but it's not going to be more than about 20 hours. And the thing is too, it allows you to keep going back. So you can do it when you have time. You can go in and do a module, and then you got an appointment coming in. So take care of your appointment and deal with that. And then maybe that night you want to do another module that'll take you 30 minutes or something. And that's how I did it. And I finished it in a couple weeks of just sliding it in between appointments and when I had a few minutes here and there. And it allows you to save your work and go back and do that. So it really is worth it. I think you really would enjoy the challenge.
Thank you. So that's all I have. So please consider helping us get that grant that would help our association for C2X. And I think that's all I had, Cher.
All right. I think that's all we have too. We've answered the questions everyone had in the chat. I don't see any others. We, of course, want to give one more quick thank you to the folks that were our partners here. Tim Thays at Edge Home Finance, Holly St. Germain at Homeowners Financial Group, Carolyn Braun at First American Natural Hazard Disclosures, and Tamara Rossi Molina at First American Home Warranty. Thank you all so much for being here today. I hope you got value from this meeting. Reach out to us and let us know if you have ideas of things you'd like to see in meetings or you'd like us to talk about. And we're always here for you. If you have questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out. This is your association. Remember, this is your association. It's not just mine or Ashley's or any of the rest of us on the board. This is your association. So please be a part. We'd love to have you. And don't forget to run for the board. See you all soon. Have a great week.